Which teams in the NFL will be improved versus their 2021 win totals? We're going to go division by division. Which teams will have more wins? Which teams fewer wins than 2021 in 2022? Coming up on today's Peacock and Williamson.
NFL analyst Brian Peacock and former NFL scout Matt Williamson bring you expert NFL analysis every day in less than 30 minutes. Get an inside look into the NFL on the field and in the front office. With elite breakdowns, next-level analysis, and in-depth information only for the real NFL fans. This is Peacock and Williamson, and it starts now.
Welcome to the Peacock and Williamson NFL show. Brian Peacock and Matt Williamson with you at BD Peacock at Williamson NFL on Twitter. Thanks for making us your first listen here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. So today's pod, Matt, we got the idea to do this pod from a few different places. So shout out to all the great fans out there. We had a Twitter Tuesday yesterday, and one of the questions was about good teams and bad teams in the NFL, and who are the high ceiling, low floor teams, and got a question about which teams might end up picking number one in the draft. And I know one of the folks you like to read a lot, which is Bill Barnwell, had an article recently, and we were inspired by some of these things. So we're going to do this our way today, and we're actually just going to go division by division and kind of answer all of those questions at once and pick teams that will improve, have more wins versus last season, and which teams might have fewer wins than they did last season.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is fun. As you mentioned, Bill is a very analytic background. He put 5 teams out yesterday on ESPN.com that he thought were going to win more games than they did last year, and then the opposite today. And I haven't read those yet, to be honest with you, except for the Steelers. I did peruse that one a little bit. But I thought, wow, great. Let's just do it ourselves, and we'll just go division by division. Who's one team in the NFC North that's going to win more games than last year? Who's one that's going to lose more? And, maybe someone will tally it up and tell us how wrong we were after week 18 this year.
I'm sure that will happen. I'm sure I could guarantee you someone's going to tally it up and let us know even before week 1 starts what we got wrong.
Probably. I'm sure we'll hear about it. I referenced Bill, and one other tool I'm going to use here and there is Warren Sharp's strength of schedule stuff. So a couple of the teams are at the bottom of the league in strength of schedule or at the top. I might reference to push me over the edge of, well, maybe they can get to that one extra win because they have a very favorable schedule. So.
Right. So many games in the NFL are decided by less than 3 points, and those things matter. So a team that might lose fewer games could actually, or lose more games could actually be a better team, but they just had worse luck. They had worse schedule, more difficult opponents, and those types of things. So the NFL is it's a curious mistress sometimes with the way things end up in a small sample size league of only 17 games. Who will be better? Who will be worse? We're going to start in the NFC West because there's a story I want to segue into the West talking about these teams. And it is Pete Carroll, who was asked yesterday about his quarterback situation. And most people from the outside looking in are looking at the Seahawks like, what the heck are you even doing right now? But Pete Carroll doesn't see it that way. He basically said, when asked about his quarterbacks, if there was an ongoing competition into the season, potentially, like the quarterback that starts week 1 between Geno Smith and Drew Lock, will that quarterback maybe not even be the starting quarterback for the bulk of the games later in the season? And Pete Carroll said, quote, "I really don't know that. Haven't really thought about it that way." He said, "We weren't afforded the opportunity this time around," talking about the competition. I don't know what he meant by that really, but he said, "I can go ahead and just call it, but I want to let the guys battle it out and show where they are and let us get as much good information as possible." And he basically went on to say, we might have 2 number ones. We'll see what happens. So the storyline out there was that we do have 2 number ones. He said we might have 2 number ones. And Matt, I would argue that they have 2 number 2s.
I think they have 2 number 2s. And 95% of the time in NFL history, Steve Young versus Montana aside, when there's a controversy like this, it's because you have 2 number 2s, not because you have 2 number 1s. Number 1 quarterbacks, there aren't many of them walking the earth, and it's rare to have them both in the same city. And I'm quite certain that they don't both reside in Seattle at the moment.
And it's funny because another team in the division might actually have 2 number ones in the San Francisco 49ers. So let's run down the division. The NFC West last year, it was the champion Los Angeles Rams not only won the NFC West, they won the Super Bowl last year. The Arizona Cardinals, they had 12 wins. The Arizona Cardinals won 11 games. The 49ers were 10-7, and the Seahawks were 7-10. Now, if we're picking the Seahawks to be last in the division, they're already last in the division last year, but they did have Russell Wilson for some of those 17 games. So which team wins more? Which team wins fewer games in 2022 in the NFC West?
I think most divisions I'll be less wishy-washy about than the one we started with. However, I'm really leaning towards less wins for 3 of these teams.
I thought you were going to say for all of them, because I could buy that argument.
I mean, San Fran was 10-7. I think that's about where they'll be. But if I have to pick one to win more, I'm going to pick your Niners. I don't think Seattle really has any chance to get to 7 wins again. I think there's a lot wrong with Arizona, and they're very fragile. I don't think they'll get to 11, and I don't know that they'll be a playoff team this year. And I don't have anything against the Rams, except getting to 12 is just a major accomplishment. And I got to think, probability shows one of their stars might actually get hurt this year. I mean, they never lose any of those studs, and I'm knocking on wood. I'm not, praying for it or anything. But if they lose Ramsey or Darnold or Kupp or Stafford, I don't see how you get to 12. And I mentioned the strength of schedule stuff. Only the Chiefs have a harder schedule than the Rams. So usually I'm not going to pick 3 in a division, and I feel a lot less confident of who's going to go over. But I think all 3 of those teams I would go under last year's win total.
It's difficult. And I think the Rams on paper have a worse roster too, because they have the same stars they had, but they lost some important pieces. They lost, their left tackle. They lost the defensive back. So and they added some pieces as well, but we'll see how that ends up turning out. But it's hard to really believe that they're going to win more than 12 games. So that's a difficult one that I'll stay away from. For the team that loses more games, it's easy to pick the Seahawks, and I think there's a potential for all these teams to have a worse record.
Mm-hmm.
But the Cardinals with 11 wins, that's a lot of wins. And, even if they have a nice season of 9 or 10 wins, and that's a total possibility for the Cardinals, I'm worried about them a little bit on defense. I got to pick the Arizona Cardinals for the team that's going to win fewer games, even though I believe the Seahawks might win fewer than 7 games as well.
Okay. Yeah. So we're pretty much on the same page. I mean, some of these teams that win 12 or more are kind of easy targets, but every year a couple teams do, I'm not always going to take that road.
And I could see the Rams going and, winning 14 games. That's certainly possible. The
Possible.
49ers are the 10 wins last year is exactly where they're at. Looking at the BetOnline odds, they're right at a 10-win team this year. The ceiling is so much higher with Trey Lance, but there's going to be ups and downs. So how quickly does he arrive? But I guess you have to pick the 49ers, and maybe the second team I pick would be the Seahawks. What if they surprise? What if they have enough?
Wow.
I mean, Pete hasn't lost games like that.
He's won a lot of games in this league. Yeah.
Right. So could they be a team that just wins 8 games and kind of surprises some people that they're even mediocre rather than just flat out bad?
I don't like betting against potential Hall of Fame coaches or guys that have won a lot of games in this league.
I agree. But give me the 49ers and give me the Cardinals for the team that's going to lose more games.
Okay. The Niners are the only one I think I could even consider to go over.
You just have to pick the teams that you think are the best. The other team would be just go with the Rams and they could win 12, 13, 14 games, and you could totally see that. Second year with Matthew Stafford, you can make the argument that they would be better this year. Allen Robinson replacing Woods and things like that.
You basically have to go like 5-1 in this division, which I think is hard to pull off.
And all of these teams are playing the AFC West, which is the best division in football. And the NFC West is, has been one of the better divisions, not quite as strong maybe as they were last year, but it's going to be tough schedules for all these teams.
Yep. We got to move along, I guess, here. Let's buzz through these divisions.
Yeah, NFC South. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, 13-4 last year, won the South. The New Orleans Saints at 9-8. The Atlanta Falcons at 7-10. The Carolina Panthers at 5-12. For me, this is an easy one. After making the Baker Mayfield move, I'm a little bullish on the Panthers. They could be over 5 wins this year. So give me those Panthers.
I think this is maybe the easiest division. I 100% agree. any of their offensive metrics, whether you just look at the basic stats or dig in deep, just show how crippling that offense was to this entire organization. And I'm not the biggest Mayfield fan in the world, but I think competent offense gets these guys to 6+ wins. And I think the Falcons are really easy to go under too. I mean, they won 7 games, but they allowed 146 more points than they scored. Like all their wins were by a point or two, and then all their losses were blowouts. Like I didn't think they were a 7-win team last year, and I don't think they're going to be any better. Matt Ryan's gone. I
do like the Saints to potentially go over if they have some better injury luck. I could buy the argument that maybe they're not quite as good either because they lost some pieces. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers 13-win team. It's just easy to say regression to the mean. Tom Brady just took a week off, kind of with some weird vibes there. They changed head coaches, even though it shouldn't be much of a different program there this year. I could buy that you would say, well, they're it's just hard to win 13 games in the NFL. They're going to come down a game or two, even if they do win the division. But the Falcons, it's almost hard to believe they won 7 games last year. And when you look at that roster, I just don't think they're going to keep up with teams, especially on defense, even if they score a little bit. I think they're a better fantasy football team than a real football team this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think they might pick first in the draft. I don't think they're getting to over 7 wins.
Okay, next we'll get to the rest of the NFC North, the NFC East, and AFC teams, which will win more, which teams will win fewer games than they did in 2021. As you gear up for fall, you need the right people on your team to help your small business fire on all cylinders. You want your small business to win more games than they did last year, right? You want to be improved. LinkedIn Jobs is here to help and make that easier to find the people you want to talk to faster and for free. Create a free job post in minutes on LinkedIn Jobs to reach your network and beyond to the world's largest professional network of over 810 million people. Then add your job to the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring so your network can help you find the right people to hire. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. And you know what it's like. There's 810 million people. I'm one of them. You're on LinkedIn. It's really easy. And that is the place to find work and the place to post your job listing. So LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates you want to talk to faster. Did you know every week, nearly 40 million job seekers visit LinkedIn? Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. That's linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Thanks again, everybody, for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day. Make sure you check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview. August 31st is when it starts next week, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts on the Locked On Podcast Network and Odyssey NFL Insiders all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Starting August 31st, search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I just got word I'll be participating in that as well, so it should be quite the extravaganza. Good stuff.
Nice. As the host of Locked On 49ers, I will also be showing up.
I figured.
To break down the NFC West. How about the NFC North, Matt? Green Bay Packers have run things for a while. 13 wins. You can put that in ink, right? 13 wins again for the Green Bay Packers this year.
I mean, LaFleur plus Rodgers equals 13 wins. I mean, it's a pretty sound, investment there. I think this one's interesting though. I would definitely go under 13 for Green Bay. I think the Vikings end up with a winning record where they were below 500 last year. But really the low-hanging fruit to me is Chicago and Detroit. Like, I don't think the Bears can be better than 6, and I very much think the Lions will be better than 3.5. Remember, they tied the Steelers last year.
Yeah, so 3.5 is the number. The Lions have to win 4 games. I believe they can win 4 games this year. So I think that is the easy one to pick the over with the Detroit Lions just because the number was so low and they're getting better every year. Now, I disagree with you with the Bears because 6 wins last year just by having a better coaching staff and Justin Fields in their second year. I think they can duplicate that. So I'm not as confident that the Bears are just going to be completely in the tank, even though you don't love the roster. I don't think it's going to be so much worse. Allen Robinson wasn't even a factor last year and was hurt a lot. So losing him doesn't hurt that much. Roquan Smith is coming back, which is good news there. Obviously no Khalil Mack or anything like that. So they could be worse, but I'm going to go with the Packers as well. Losing Devontae Adams, just 13 wins is so difficult to do every year, and maybe Matt LaFleur and Aaron Rodgers are going to have to sneak into the playoffs with 12 wins this year.
Yeah, I just think they're going to have to play a little different style. I adore their defense. I think they'll run the ball a little more, play a little slower tempo, and a little bit closer scoring games, manage the games a little more.
And you're right. The Vikings 8-9. That's just who they are. So they might be 9-8, but
right.
One of those two. So I'm not confident either way with them losing a lot more or winning a lot more games.
Yep, I hear you there.
NFC East, Dallas Cowboys won the thing with 12 wins. The Philadelphia Eagles 9-8 snuck into the playoffs. The Washington Commanders were 7-10, and the New York Giants were 4-13. Who wins more? Who wins less, Matt?
Cowboys, I don't think get to 12 again. I mean, to me, they're noticeably worse on paper, and this offseason wasn't real kind to them. Now we've got receiver injuries on top of that, and they're counting on Tyron Smith and Zach Martin and some of those guys that are up in age that have had some injuries to stay healthy. So I'm pretty confident on the under on Dallas. I referenced
real quick, Matt, with the Dallas Cowboys, and maybe this is what you're about to say, talking about the luck with the Dallas Cowboys last year and the takeaways they had.
Exactly. It's hard to count on.
So, yeah, that's just regression to the mean, a little less luck. I think the roster is worse. I think they'll be a good team. I think they could still absolutely win the division. 12 games is tough, though. So I'm going to go under with the Cowboys as well.
Okay. I referenced Warren's strength of schedule. The Giants have the easiest schedule in all the land. I still can't pick them, though. But the Eagles have the second easiest schedule in all the land. I think they get the double-digit wins.
Okay, yeah, we're seeing eye to eye on this one. The Eagles, because I just don't think that the Giants are a good enough team for me to confidently say more than 4 wins, even though 4 is a pretty low number. And if I had to pick, I would pick over 4 than under 4. And the Washington Commanders, I just don't know what to feel about them. And I would like to say over on them, but I just think 9-8, the Philadelphia Eagles, they've got too much talent across the board, and I pick the over on them.
Yeah, I think they're closer to a true contender than they are a 500 type team.
Totally agree there. Okay, that was an easier division, and that is the end of the NFC. Let's get started here on the AFC with the AFC West, the best division talent-wise, top to bottom in the NFL. They had 2 playoff teams. It was the Chiefs at 12-5 and the Las Vegas Raiders at 10-7. Then the Los Angeles Chargers at 9-8 did not make the playoffs. The Denver Broncos at 7-10 added a superstar quarterback in Russell Wilson.
So probably last time I referenced strength of schedule. Well, maybe not. The Chiefs have the hardest schedule in the league. The Raiders have the 3rd hardest schedule in the league. And as you mentioned, West plays West. So I would probably lean towards unders in both Western divisions, just kind of across the board because of who they have to play. I'm not betting against Mahomes and Reed, though. So I'm going to bet against the Raiders to get to 10. I mean, they're another one. They had a minus 65 point differential and won 10 out of 17 games last year.
That is rare. Wild. When you look at, and I'm just looking at the ESPN standings from last year, and they have the teams that were in plus differential in green and the teams that are in negative differential in red with the records. And the Raiders look so odd because they're at the top and they're a 10-win team with the big red number of minus 65 in the differential. Every other team in the division, even the 7-10 Broncos, still had a plus 13 differential for the season. The Raiders were minus 65. That's like I'm trying to find a team. So
it's amazing. The Steelers are close because they're also minus 55 and they won 9.5 games, but that stuff's rare.
Super rare. So they were going to come back anyway. Devontae Adams, is he enough to really make that offense into a powerhouse? I'm worried about some of the back 7 on the defense. I like what's going on with the pass rushers they've got in Las Vegas, but everybody else got better in the division, and that's the scary part. So I think you just have to go with the Raiders being the team that wins fewer games.
Yeah, I just think negative point differential last year coupled with brutal schedule probably equals single-digit wins.
So who wins more games? The Chiefs, it's tough. The strength of schedule, they're a good team. They lost the Tyreek Hill. They're going to be right there, but is it 11? Is it 13? I don't know. I wouldn't bet on that one. Really, it comes down to the Broncos and the Chargers for teams, and I think these are both good bets of teams that you could go with. They win more games in 2022.
I agree. I would go over for both. Again, they're playing the West. They're going to have a tough competition. but they're both noticeably improved. I think Herbert's a total superstar, so I'm going to lean Chargers over Broncos, but Broncos only have to get to 8-9 for you to win this bet, where the Chargers have to get to 10. That's a coin flip for me on which one I would take for the over, but I think I'll go with the Chargers.
I'm going to go Chargers too, because with the Broncos, not only do they have a new quarterback, they have a first-time head coach. And remember, the team that Russell Wilson played for last year also had 7 wins. Now, he was hurt for a lot of the season too. And that might have factored in, and things were a little weird, but I'm going to go Chargers. I just believe in Herbert, and I think Brandon Staley's going to have a bounce back year. I think all those, I was talking about luck. I think some of those 4th downs are they're going to make them, right? And they're going to be better at defending the run. They're already really good at defending and throwing the football. So passing game wins in the NFL. Let's go Chargers.
I don't love first-year coach in Denver. I don't love second-year coach in LA either. But I think, been around the league for a whole year as a head guy, you learned a thing or two for the Chargers.
Coming up next, AFC South, AFC North, AFC East. Which teams win more games? Which team lose more games than they did last year in those divisions? And you can bet on win totals at betonline.net, the fastest and easiest way to check in on all your betting needs. Find all your favorite sports and events at the #1 online source for odds, lines, and games. Find reviews and news on every league, including NFL, tons of NFL futures, Major League Baseball, NHL, combat sports, esports, even golf. They announced a 3rd golf league that's coming in 2020.
Oh, really?
There's going to be an unlimited amount of golf to bet on soon at BetOnline, which continues to be the top online resource for all your sports, not just wagering, but information about those wagers as well. Live in-game betting, scores, news, and more. They have you covered. So get over to BetOnline today. Use your desktop or mobile device to learn more about the trends in action at BetOnline, where the game starts. Moving on to the AFC North. Matt, this is the division, or no, let's start with
South.
We're going South first. This is the Tennessee Titans, who were the 1 seed in the AFC. This seems like one of the easier ones for me at 12-5. Can the Tennessee Titans repeat as the 1 seed in a really difficult AFC landscape? The Indianapolis Colts, they were the only team that made the playoffs in the South last year. The Colts at 9-8 have Matt Ryan now at quarterback. The Houston Texans have gotten under the cloud of Deshaun Watson. They were a 4-13 team last year, found a capable starting quarterback in Davis Mills, and the Jacksonville Jaguars at 3-14 found a capable professional head coach now. And with Trevor Lawrence going into his 2nd season, I think the Jacksonville Jaguars are the easy team to say, yes, they are for sure going to win more than 3 games this year.
This has to be the easiest division for this. I mean, because they have not only they have the #1 seed in the AFC, as you mentioned, but they had the team that picked first and was the worst record. So they're almost guaranteed to both kind of drift towards the mean a little bit. And plus all the reasons you mentioned about just ridding yourself of the awful situation in Jacksonville. I think they win 6, 7, maybe even 8 games in Jacksonville. I can't imagine a situation where Tennessee wins 13. I mean, I really think that they are going backwards right now as an organization, especially on offense, really the offense. So I think these ones are real easy. If they were in another division, I might take the over on Colts. I think they can get 10 without a whole lot of problem.
I would buy the over on all those teams, the Colts, the Texans, and the Jaguars. The Tennessee Titans could absolutely win the division again. Just, I don't think they're going to be 1 seed. And I don't think they were necessarily 1 seed stuff last year.
Right.
Either. So, 10 wins for the Titans, 9 wins maybe. I think they're an over and above 500 team, certainly. And the Colts, I think, are going to be better than they were last year, but you can't pick them over the Jaguars. And I would definitely not pick the Colts, Texans, or Jaguars to lose more games than they did last year.
I would not either. I guess I would take the over if I had to take one of the things with Houston, but they may win 4 again and be a better team, but still only win 4,
The old a year away from being a year away team.
Yeah, possibly. One big offseason could go a long way for them.
The AFC North, this is the team this is the division you cover closest. You are, in fact, those who watch the show might recognize that this week Matt Williamson is back at his home studio and not at his hotel room, his dorm room in Latrobe, PA at Steelers training camp. So The Cincinnati Bengals. I mean, these teams were all so tight last year. Only one team had a plus point differential last year, by the way, and it was the Bengals who went to the Super Bowl. But they were 10-7 during the regular season, so they didn't like boat race folks on the way to that Super Bowl run. 10-7 for the Bengals who won the division. 9-7 for the Pittsburgh Steelers who had a minus 55 point differential on the year. 9-7-1, so 9.5 wins is what we're talking about for the Steelers. 8-9 for both the Browns and the Ravens. The Ravens had all-time injury luck. So is that just too easy to pick the Ravens over 8?
I think so. I would go under on Steelers, but I feel stronger about under on Browns, which is also kind of cheating because they're not going to have their quarterback for the first 11 games. And I think over on Baltimore is an easy one as well. I mean, historically injured, as you mentioned. They lost their last 6 to finish out the season. That's just not Ravens football, Harbaugh football, Lamar football. I wish I felt better about Ronnie Stanley with them, but I think they're a winning organization.
How about this? Of last place teams in the NFL last year, the Baltimore Ravens had the second best point differential. We talked about how the Denver Broncos had a plus 13. Actually, I take that back. All the teams in the West had a plus point differential. The Seahawks were plus 29 last year at 7-10.
That's a little surprising. Yeah.
That's wild. The Baltimore Ravens were only minus 5. So, for all intents and purposes, they're pretty, that's about as close as you can get to a 500 team. 8-9. They were 5 points under on the differential for the season. And they just had ridiculous injury luck. You got to go over with the Ravens. The under here is somewhat difficult because I like all of these teams, and Steelers didn't get great quarterback play from Ben Roethlisberger, and they're so well coached. So the Steelers, even the under, I don't feel that good about, but I think you do have to go with the Steelers under 9.5 because they can still win 9 games.
I mean, Tomlin's gone 15 years in a row without having a losing record. There's something to be said for that. But they have to get to 10 to win your bet if you go over. So that's why I said under. But I was real happy the Browns were in this division because of the Watson thing. I think they're unlikely to get to 8, although they could finish the season strong and tough out some early wins against bad opponents. I was desperately avoiding the Bengals because I think 10-7 is like dead on for them.
Yeah, I like that for them as well. I could see over for the Bengals, and I think they're going to be a really good team as long as Joe Burrow's healthy. They're going to win games. And they got better. I think they did get better. They got better up front on offense, and they got better on defense.
Yep.
The Cleveland Browns, though, at 8-9, they didn't have Deshaun Watson last year either, right?
No, that's true.
They had a broken Baker Mayfield, and that they had some infighting. So I don't know that the vibe is even that much worse, even though I don't like the vibe for the Browns. And that's sort of the thing where you'd say there's a cloud over the organization and they could fall apart this year, but they still have talent on both sides of the ball. So I don't feel comfortable saying the Browns are going to lose more games than they did last year, even with respect.
So are you over the Ravens and under the Steelers? I didn't hear a distinct under from the
Yes. Numbers. Yeah. I got to go under Steelers at 9.5 and over Ravens at 8 wins.
Okay. Not an easy division though.
It's a good division. You could talk me into any of those teams winning the division, even with the Pittsburgh Steelers and changing quarterbacks. Buffalo Bills 11-6 won the East. 10-7 were the New England Patriots. 9-8 for the Dolphins, and the New York Jets were a lowly 4-13 last year. Matt, they've already got questions now with their quarterback coming into the season. Will young Zach Wilson be better than he was last year, and will he even be healthy for week 1 to start the season? I love what's going on with the rest of the roster. Tons of high-end talent that they brought in there. So I would have easily gone over if you did this a couple weeks ago with the Jets, but I'm a little bit worried with the quarterback position coming into the year.
I'm very worried about it because he hasn't been good when he's healthy. Now he's not healthy. And I think you can make the argument, not that I'm a Joe Flacco believer, maybe they have a better chance to win a game or two with Flacco than Wilson to start the season.
I was going to say the same thing. So honestly, if Wilson's out for a couple of weeks, sits back, watches, gets 100%, and they're okay with Joe Flacco, professional starting quarterback there to hold down the fort for a couple of weeks, and then transition back into Zach Wilson. I could see that. I mean, I guess got to go over with the New York Jets, but even with 11 wins, I kind of feel like I want to go over with the Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, I'm struggling with this division. I'm buying my time because I'm keep looking at it, and maybe they, quote, don't rush Wilson back if things go well early in the season. I could step one more week. We're going to make sure you're healthy. I guess I'd go over with the Jets because they're better than a 3-14 team. I mean, that's the only way you lose. I think that they have some things in their favor, and it's a much better roster. Like, I love Elijah Moore, and I love Sauce Gardner, and, so they're better, and I think they have a professional coach as well. I thought about the Bills, but betting on any team to get to 12 is pretty tough, but you throw Von Miller in the mix, and, they're going to be really good. Here's what my problem, though, is I'm going to go under on the Patriots. But, boy, betting against Belichick, I mean, they'll win 10 games again and get in the playoffs, and I'll eat my words. And, they had a plus 159 point differential last year, and I didn't think they were particularly good last year, and I don't think their roster is particularly good now, but that guy knows how to win games.
It's crazy to bet against Bill Belichick, but I'm going to do it, Matt. This is the year they're going to fall apart. I don't know what's going on with their offensive coaching philosophy, and I'm sure Bill Belichick's going to prove me wrong, and they're going to go win 12 games and win the division and shock everybody. But the New England Patriots, this is the year, sub 500 team, fewer than 10 wins.
And you're even going sub 500.
Oh, yeah.
Not even 9-8.
There's going to be big questions after this year.
So much of me thinks that's coming, where we might see the Patriots pick like 8th overall in the draft. Like, oh my gosh, and maybe even the same is true for Steelers and Seattle and some of these teams that have been super, successful of this era. But boy, betting against those coaches is bad business. But man, I don't think the Patriots have very many good players. And
Dolphins, I have no idea. They could go either.
I had no idea. I just didn't even bring them up.
So yeah, no idea. 9-8, probably 9-8 again is where I would put that line. Mm-hmm. So that's a good one. Anyway, all right. Those are the teams that are going to win and lose more games than they did last season. Thanks everybody for making Peacock and Williamson your first listen every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Make sure you're getting ready for your fantasy drafts with Locked On Fantasy Football and Locked On Dynasty Football. Matt and I back tomorrow right here, Peacock and Williamson.